Welcome to episode 133 of the Loane Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about some standouts between Carolina and St. Louis from last night. And really good game. Carolina, they put on a dominating show for the majority of it. I thought they were showcasing their ability. Like they look like the natural Carolina Hurricanes in terms of their identity. And I felt like they played just a really good brand of their own style of hockey. I felt like they were rolling throughout most of the game and they just had that consistency in their game. St. Louis has been off to an inconsistent start. They had a good season last year, but it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes from this year because with them so inconsistent right out of the gate, I don't know what's really in store for them in the next few months and beyond that point. So with them, they need to have a little bit more consistency in their game and a little bit more rhythm and structure to the game over time. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see what St. Louis does and how they're able to do that, or if they're able to get back in playoff form. Carolina, though, like I said, dominating, and they're up to 13-4-0 now in the season. And in terms of some standouts in this game, I thought Marty Necas was excellent, just beyond. I don't really know what to say about him anymore because I've talked about him multiple times previously, and at the same time, he's still a guy that you notice every single shift in, shift out. He's really become the heart and soul of this team in some ways because he creates with his speed. He has identity as a forechecker. He can play a two-way game. He's very sound at both even strength and on the power play. Just a guy that's very reliable all around. It's very fine players like that who are relatively inexpensive, but also are elite players and play an elite style of game. And so with Marty Necas, he just fits this Carolina brand of hockey really well ever since he was drafted back, I believe it's 2017, 11th or 12th overall. And ever since that point and ever since coming out of the AHL, he's just only continued to get better in the NHL. And this season, he's been off to a tremendously hot start. I believe he's top three or four in scoring right now and just has lit it up and consistently produces night in, night out. Sometimes you see a lot of multi-point games out of him, and that's what's really impressive. Like yesterday, he had a 4-point game. And at the same time, he's still showing his speed. He's showing his all-around ability. He's showing his playmaking. Like there are a lot of elements for him that are rolling and have been rolling throughout the season thus far. And so with Natchez, he's a guy that plays an aggressive style of possession. So when he gets the puck, he's looking to attack right away. And he's looking to get the puck and move it either individually or to a teammate. And that's what really stands out. He's always looking to generate speed behind the puck and attack with the puck. And having that speed element allows him to create in a dynamic way where he can slice through and maneuver through defenders moving laterally, but at the same time still use his straight line speed to be able to evade guys in that sense. So a guy that brings a lot of versatility to the table, a guy that's tremendously valuable in terms of the contract that he got and how he's basically outproducing it already. And just he looks like he's going to have a 90 or 100-point season if he continues the pace that he's on right now. And can continue to make his mark as a borderline superstar player in the NHL. So this has been a massive coming out party for him in terms of offensive ability and how he can generate offense and be so reliable in that end of the ice and really be a play driver even as a winger. And another guy who stood out, who is also on his line, has been on his line to start this entirety of the season thus far, and has been a really good signing for them. As Eric Robinson has been a guy who brings a lot of speed up the wings. He's tremendous with his tenacity. Yesterday, I really noticed his ability to retrieve pucks and be able to be that F1 in, F2 in sometimes, mostly the F1 guy in, and be able to retrieve pucks and then get puck either Natchez, who would be the F3 in the slot area, or he could just try to maneuver out of the corner, out of the wall scenario, and try to create an individual sequence with the puck. And he brings a lot of speed. There's a lot of tenacity in his game. There's a little bit of grit in his game, some feistiness, and just a guy who really works hard along the perimeter of the ice, and especially in the O zone, where he does a lot of things that other players aren't willing to do necessarily. He's willing to battle in battles that aren't necessarily that other players aren't really willing to go after as often. So with Robinson, he's a guy that stands out in that sense, brings a really good two-way game. He's really good as a shutdown player, shutting gaps with his speed and closing gaps. And he's very effective as a defensive player with his angles, how he's able to stay square positionally to guys, how he's able to box out guys and be a consistent defensive player. And he's been great inside their top six thus far. And he's been a really good fit with Marty Necas on his other wing because they really complement each other really well and they play a similar style of game. Just obviously Robinson isn't that of that same tier as Necas in terms of skill, but can bring some of those elements that complement Necas really well. And then Shane Gostisbehere looked really good on the offensive side of the puck, looked really good in transition. He looked really good on his outlets. I liked his overall play with the puck in transition, how he's moving pucks and how he's moving pucks firm. I felt like that added an element of not only transition ability, but be able to be a play driver in some ways offensively in this game. And a guy who can generate a lot of volume from the point as a power play producer as well. He usually quarterbacks the first unit and has been pretty productive there thus far. And obviously, it's his second time in Carolina thus far, and he's been a really great fit for them on a relatively inexpensive deal. Jesperi Kotkaniemi looked good in this game. I've liked his game. He's just a little inconsistent in terms of game to game. Sometimes I feel like one game I watch him, he'll have a really good game, and the next game you almost barely notice him, which is kind of weird. But when he's at his best, he's a two-way guy. He's a two-way center who can make plays. He's more of a playmaker than a scorer, I would say, but he's got an underrated shot. He's got really underrated wrist shot that he needs to utilize a little bit more, especially from interior in the offensive zone. But at the same time, he's really effective as a playmaker, really effective at using his reach and size to be able to hook passes around defenders and be able to open up lanes individually. And it looks really skilled in that sense. Andrei Svechnikov looked really good as well. I'm not surprised by that. I feel like he's been off to a really good start this year as well. And just his overall play and the roundedness in his game, the power game that he brings, the ability to bring speed and some flair to his game and some grit and some tenacity. He's got a lot of different elements to his game that allow him to be a consistent top six player. And he's slightly in the underrated tier where sometimes you notice him and sometimes you don't, but he's got some subtleties to his game in terms of his ability to drive play. And I feel like that's what makes him slightly underrated is you don't necessarily notice those details right away, but when you dive deeper into his game, you notice them. And with Svechnikov, he's a guy that really controls the walls really well, controls board battles, controls possessions, uses puck protection. Got a lot of different elements, especially with his frame. He's filled out for his size, so that also helps him be able to protect pucks and extend possessions. And then Jackson Blake has been really impressive to start this season. He's one of the leading rookie goal scorers in the league right now and has been very productive for them. Even in he's playing more of a fourth line role, but at the same time, he's been productive as an offensive guy, a guy who can generate offense in many little ways more than anything else. I feel like he's really good as a puck carrier when he's maneuvering guys and being able to maneuver not only one on one, but being able to maneuver off the wall. And he's really slick with his puck skills, and that allows him to be able to control space a little bit more efficiently. So, a guy who probably gets bottom six ice time for a lot of the season, but at the same time has still been producing, and he's been a very valuable component to their team. And even recently, he played last night on the first unit, their power play for Carolina. So he was noticeable in that role and he was noticeable controlling the flanks in the ozone when he was on the power play. And then for St. Louis's side, Jordan Kyrou just he plays that Carolina style game in terms of how he plays too. So this kind of fits really well here. And Kyrou's just a good play driver. He's a guy who plays with speed. He plays in transition with speed. He can play laterally with speed. East west, he's very much a threat when he has the puck on his stick. Even his straight line speed is a really big asset to his game and allows him to be able to control space, not only off the rush, but on entry play, and has become a really key component to the St. Louis team over the course of his career thus far. And then Jake Neighbors played a really good game. He's got really good scoring instincts, really got a really good knack for scoring around the net and being able to score around the crease. Really efficient from that sense. And I feel like with Neighbors, he's looking to take that step forward this year, especially as a scorer. He had a very productive year last year. And this year, he's, look to continue to improve upon that and try to score even more potentially. And Neighbors is a guy he brings similar to Kyrou in some ways with his speed off the rush, speed in transition, speed on entries, brings some lateral playmaking, but he's more of a straight line threat, I would say. Sometimes in entries he's more of a straight line guy, but that's fine because he's still able to produce and generate a lot of the time.